What if I told you the next big shortage isn't years away, but just months? Imagine this winter: half-empty shelves, doubled prices, and limits on basics like rice, flour, and oil. It's not hype. Farmers are facing fertilizer shortages, fuel costs are spiking, and extreme weather is wrecking crops. The supply chain isn't delayed this time, it's breaking. That's why smart preppers are already moving, buying key bulk items now, not later. In this video, I'll reveal 15 essentials you need to stock up on before 2025's shortages hit hard. Hey folks, welcome back to Frugal Prepping. Things are getting unpredictable again, but don't panic. Let's get smart. I'll show you how to buy strategically, save money, and stay secure no matter what's coming. Stick around till the end, because the last few items might just surprise you. 1. Rice, the foundation of survival. Let's start with something simple, but game-changing. Rice. It's one of the best survival staples you can buy in bulk because it delivers so much for so little. White rice is calorie-dense, hugely affordable, and when stored properly, sealed in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, it can keep for 25 to 30 years. Here's how to think about it. While others are paying $4 for a small box of pasta or watching prices double at the grocery, you've already got a 50-pound bag of rice tucked away. You cook it simply, stretch it with beans, use it to feed a family, and preserve your food budget when things get tight. Imagine this scenario. You walk into the store just after a supply chain announcement. The shelves for pasta and quick carbs are half gone, prices are up, and panic is setting in. But you don't stress. You've got rice. Drop it in a bucket with a lid, and you're covered for months. But storage matters. You want to keep rice in a cool, dry place, sealed airtight. Utah State University's extension research says polished white rice stored at a constant 70 degrees Fahrenheit with oxygen absorbers can last up to 30 years. Brown rice? Not so much. It has oils that go rancid and should be consumed much sooner. Rice alone won't keep you going. They took care of calories. Now let's talk about the protein that makes your pantry bulletproof. 2. Beans, the protein partner. Here's where things get powerful. Beans, the unsung hero of every smart prepper's pantry. When you pair beans with rice, you're not just eating cheap. You're building a complete protein, something your body needs to stay strong under stress. Whether it's black beans, pintos, navy, or lentils, each one delivers fiber, minerals, and plant-based protein that can literally keep you alive when meat prices skyrocket or stores run dry. According to USDA data, dry beans can last 10 years or more when stored in airtight containers in a cool, dark place. Even FEMA's emergency food guides recommend keeping beans and lentils as long-term pantry staples because they're high in nutrients and easy to cook over minimal heat. And let's talk cost. A 20-pound bag of pinto beans can still be found for under $20 in bulk at warehouse stores. That's hundreds of servings for pennies each. But here's the thing. When supply trucks stalled in early 2024 after fuel shortages and weather delays, canned beans were one of the first items to vanish from shelves. People panicked, but the preppers who had dry beans stored in buckets, they didn't skip a beat. I remember a family in Kansas telling me how they powered through 2 full weeks of a grid-down winter storm with nothing but rice, beans, and a few spices. And you know what? They didn't just survive. They ate well and stayed calm while their neighbors were scrambling. But protein isn't enough. Your body also needs energy. And the next bulk item fuels you better than most people realize. 4. Honey, the liquid gold of survival. There's a reason they call honey liquid gold. It never expires. Archaeologists have literally uncovered sealed jars of honey from ancient Egyptian tombs, over 3,000 years old, and it was still perfectly edible. That's not folklore, that's science. According to the USDA, honey's low moisture content and natural acidity make it nearly impossible for bacteria to grow, which is why it remains shelf-stable indefinitely if kept sealed and dry. But honey isn't just food, it's medicine, morale, and barter power rolled into one. In fact, modern research published by the National Institutes of Health confirms that raw honey has natural antibacterial and antifungal properties. Hospitals use medical-grade honey to treat burns and infections when antibiotics fail. So imagine being in a long-term grid-down situation, where pharmacies are closed and supplies are scarce. A spoonful of honey could mean the difference between healing and infection. From a survival standpoint, it's also a pure energy source. 1 tablespoon gives you around 60 calories of natural sugar, quick fuel when you're working, hiking, or just trying to stay warm through a cold night. It also keeps spirits up when meals get bland. A drizzle of honey over oatmeal or a spoon stirred into herbal tea can turn survival food into something that feels normal. And when sugar disappears, like it did during the supply crunch of 2024, when prices spiked nearly 30%, according to Statista, honey becomes a luxury. That's why smart preppers buy it by the gallon now, storing it in glass or food-grade buckets. Think of it as edible insurance. When others are trading canned goods, you'll have something even better, a natural sweetener, healer, and barter item that never goes bad. But what if you could stock something just as timeless and even more versatile? Let's talk about salt, the original currency of survival. 5. Salt, the forgotten essential. Salt might seem ordinary, but when crisis hits, it becomes extraordinary. For centuries, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was currency. Roman soldiers were literally paid in salt, which is where the word salary comes from. And in a survival situation, that same principle holds true. Salt doesn't just make food taste better, it keeps you alive. Here's why. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, salt is essential for preserving meats and vegetables through curing, smoking, and pickling, methods that don't require refrigeration. When the power goes out and freezers fail, salt turns perishable food into long-lasting nutrition. It's also critical for maintaining electrolyte balance. FEMA's emergency preparedness guidelines note that dehydration and salt loss can become serious issues during extended crises, especially in hot climates or when physical labor increases. And it's not just about survival, it's about barter. During the 2021 to 2022 supply disruptions, global salt shipments slowed by nearly 15%, and local shortages spiked prices in parts of the Midwest. Imagine that happening during a nationwide freeze or transportation shutdown. A 20-pound bag of salt that costs $5 today could become a valuable trade item overnight. One prepper I spoke with keeps 25 pounds sealed in Mylar bags inside plastic bins. He calls it white gold, and he's right. Salt never expires, never spoils, and takes up almost no space. You can store it for decades and still use it for everything from food preservation to first aid. Yes, saltwater rinses can clean wounds when supplies run low. If you're serious about preparedness, this one's non-negotiable. Start small, 10 to 20 pounds, and you'll be far ahead of most households when the supply chain freezes again. But what if you could stock something that adds flavor and years to your food supply? Let's talk about oils and fats, the silent essentials every prepper forgets. 6. Cooking oil, liquid calories. When people think about survival food, they often picture rice, beans, or canned goods. But here's what most forget. Your body can't survive long without fat. Cooking oil isn't just about flavor. It's what helps your body absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K, the nutrients that keep your immune system, eyes, and heart functioning when everything else feels uncertain. According to the USDA, the average American consumes nearly 36 pounds of cooking oils per year, and global data from Statista shows that vegetable oil demand hit an all-time high in 2024, largely due to disruptions in Ukraine and South America, two major exporters. When geopolitical tension or drought hits those regions, shelves here in the US empty faster than you'd think. We saw it during the pandemic, and again during the 2022 oil shortage, when prices for canola and sunflower oil jumped over 40% in just a few months. So here's the reality. If a crisis hits and supply trucks stop running, cooking oil will disappear almost overnight. FEMA even notes in its emergency preparedness guidance that fats and oils are among the most overlooked yet essential calorie sources for long-term storage. Just a few tablespoons can provide hundreds of calories, energy your body desperately needs when food is limited. Here's what smart preppers do. They buy in bulk, olive oil, coconut oil, or even shortening, and store it in a cool, dark place. Rotate every few months to keep it fresh, and don't forget to seal those containers tightly. Because when the shelves go bare, oil isn't just for cooking, it's fuel for survival. But here's the twist. There's one simple item that's even more critical than oil, because it's what keeps everything edible longer. 7. Sugar, energy, and preservation. When people think of survival food, sugar isn't usually the first thing that comes to mind. But in reality, it's one of the most versatile and valuable items you can store. It's fuel for your body, a preservative for your food, and, when things get rough, a form of comfort that money can't buy. According to the USDA, the average American consumes around 60 pounds of sugar per year, and most of that comes from processed foods and drinks. But in a crisis, those shelves won't be restocked, and suddenly sugar becomes a rare commodity. It's not just about sweetening your coffee, it's about keeping your energy up and preserving what you have. FEMA's emergency preparedness guidance highlights the importance of high-calorie, long-lasting foods and sugar checks both boxes perfectly. Sugar's preserving power is why it's used in jams, jellies, and fruit syrups. It prevents bacteria and mold from growing. That means your summer fruit harvest or store-bought produce can last through the winter if you know how to use sugar correctly. In past crises, from the Great Depression to the early pandemic supply shocks, sugar was among the first staples to disappear. Another thing to think about, sugar never really expires if stored right. Kept dry in an airtight container, it can last indefinitely. That's rare for any food item. It also doubles as a powerful barter good. When comfort items like candy or desserts are impossible to find, people will trade heavily for a simple bag of sugar. So don't overlook it. Buy it in 10 to 25-pound bags, store it sealed, and tuck it away somewhere cool and dry. Because when stress runs high and food options run low, even a spoonful of sugar can make survival a little bit sweeter. 8. Pasta, the comfort food of crisis. When life feels uncertain, comfort food does more than fill your stomach. It calms your mind, and few foods do that better than pasta. It's affordable, stores well for years, and can turn into dozens of meals with just a few simple ingredients. In an emergency, when fresh bread and perishables disappear from store shelves, pasta becomes a warm, reliable fallback that keeps families fed and morale steady. According to the USDA, pasta is one of the most shelf-stable and calorie-dense dry foods available. 1 pound of pasta provides around 1,600 calories, meaning a 50-pound stash could sustain a family of 4 for weeks if rationed wisely. It's also a key carbohydrate source, something FEMA emphasizes as essential in emergency food supplies, since carbs fuel both body and brain function during high-stress situations. Here's another thing most people overlook: pasta's versatility. You can cook it with canned vegetables, powdered cheese, or even a simple mix of oil and salt, and it's still satisfying. During the early days of the 2020 lockdowns, pasta was one of the first foods to vanish from grocery stores, and by 2024, prices for imported wheat-based products rose more than 18% according to Statista data. That's a clear signal. In any disruption, pasta becomes a top priority item. And beyond practicality, there's something deeply human about sharing a simple bowl of noodles when the world outside feels unstable. It's a reminder of normalcy, family, and comfort, things money can't replace when systems break down. So if you haven't already, start building a small reserve, different shapes, different types, and airtight storage. Because a family with 50 pounds of pasta, they'll never go hungry. But next, we move from food to something even more valuable, something your survival depends on every single day. 9. Water storage and purification. Here's a sobering truth. Most American homes don't even have a 3-day supply of drinkable water. According to FEMA, every person needs at least 1 gallon of water per day, half for drinking and half for hygiene and cooking. Yet surveys show that less than 40% of U.S. households meet that basic recommendation. When disaster strikes, a hurricane, power outage, or contaminated water system, most families run out of safe water within 24 hours. We've seen it happen again and again. In February 2021, when the Texas freeze crippled water systems across the state, over 14 million residents were told to boil their water. Stores sold out of bottled water in hours. And more recently, in 2024, flooding in parts of the Midwest led to widespread water contamination, leaving thousands relying on emergency distribution centers just to get a few gallons. These aren't rare prepper scenarios. They're real events happening in American neighborhoods. That's why storing and purifying water isn't optional. It's survival. Start with bottled water for short-term emergencies, then move up to 55-gallon food-grade barrels or stackable jugs for longer outages. A family of 4 should aim for at least 50 gallons to get through a week without access to clean water. And here's something most people overlook. Storage means nothing without purification. Keep water filters like the LifeStraw, Sawyer, or Berkey systems on hand, and stock up on purification tablets or unscented bleach for backup. It's not flashy, but it's life-saving. When the taps go dry or the grid goes down, having your own water supply means the difference between calm and chaos, because once the shelves are empty, it's already too late to prepare. 10. Canned meat and fish. Protein is one of the hardest things to replace when grocery shelves start to thin out. FEMA and the USDA both highlight protein as a core survival nutrient, essential for maintaining strength, immunity, and mental clarity during crises. Yet, during 2024's inflation spike, the average price of fresh meat in the US jumped by over 55%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Ground beef, chicken, and pork all saw record highs, while seafood imports were hit by shipping delays and fuel costs. Families who relied on weekly meat runs suddenly had to cut portions or go without entirely. But preppers, they were ready. Canned tuna, chicken, and sardines, items many people overlook, became quiet lifesavers. A single can of tuna gives you about 20 grams of protein, and unlike fresh meat, it doesn't require refrigeration or cooking. During blackouts or supply disruptions, that's gold. Canned salmon, mackerel, and even Spam provide shelf-stable calories that last 3 to 5 years when stored in a cool place. Here's where it gets real. When the Midwest storms hit in late 2024 and trucking routes froze for nearly 2 weeks, local supermarkets ran out of fresh meat within 3 days. But people who stocked up on canned protein ate balanced meals while others waited in long food lines. Canned meat isn't glamorous, but it's survival smart. Mix it into pasta, rice, or even instant soups for quick, hearty meals. Store what your family actually eats, rotate it regularly, and aim for at least 20 to 30 cans per person in your emergency pantry. When shortages return, and experts warn they will, those small cans could mean the difference between hunger and stability. 11. Coffee and tea. It might sound funny, but when the world slows down, or worse, shuts down, a simple cup of coffee can feel like sanity in a mug. According to Statista, over 74% of American adults drink coffee every day, and during supply chain disruptions in 2024, coffee imports dropped nearly 12% due to shipping delays from South America. Prices spiked fast, with some regions seeing bagged coffee jump from $8 to $14, almost overnight. Here's what most people don't realize. Caffeine isn't just a habit, it's a morale booster and a trade good. In stressful survival situations, morale often determines how well people endure hardship. FEMA even lists emotional resilience as a key factor in disaster preparedness, and that's where coffee and tea come in. They bring normalcy, focus, and even a sense of community when everything else feels uncertain. Tea has its own superpowers. Green and black teas are rich in antioxidants, help hydration, and can even soothe digestion, something that's crucial when diets change suddenly during a crisis. Plus, herbal teas like chamomile or mint can calm nerves and promote sleep when stress runs high. That's why smart preppers store vacuum-sealed coffee bricks, instant coffee packets, and bulk tea bags in airtight containers. These items have long shelf lives and can be used as barter. Imagine trading a pack of coffee for extra batteries or medical supplies. People will line up for it. So don't underestimate this simple comfort. Coffee and tea might not keep you alive like rice or beans, but they'll keep your spirit alive. And sometimes, that's what really keeps you going when the world gets tough. 12. Toilet paper and hygiene essentials. Let's be honest, no one wants to repeat what happened in 2020. Remember those empty aisles where toilet paper was treated like gold? It wasn't just panic buying. It was a harsh reminder of how fragile supply chains really are. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, paper product imports dropped by nearly 15% in 2024 due to shipping slowdowns and energy shortages overseas. It doesn't take much, just a few weeks of disrupted logistics, for stores to run dry again. That's why every serious prepper stocks up on hygiene essentials. We're talking about toilet paper, soap, toothpaste, deodorant, razors, feminine products, even baby wipes and disinfectants. They're not luxury items, they're survival basics. FEMA consistently reminds households to keep at least a 2-week supply of personal hygiene products, but most preppers aim for 6 months to a year. Because here's the truth. Once crisis hits, these everyday comforts become priceless. Hygiene is more than convenience, it's disease prevention. During natural disasters, the CDC reports that waterborne and hygiene-related illnesses can spread up to 40% faster in areas where sanitation breaks down. That means a lack of soap or toilet paper can quickly turn into a health emergency. I once heard from a prepper in Texas who rode out a 2-week winter blackout in 2021. While neighbors ran out of basic toiletries, his family stayed clean, organized, and calm, simply because he planned ahead. That's the difference between panic and peace of mind. Stock up now. Store everything in dry, sealed containers. Because when the next shortage hits, it won't matter how much rice or pasta you have. If you can't stay clean, you can't stay healthy. But there's one thing people often overlook, and without it, your food stockpile could rot away. 13. Storage supplies, Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and buckets. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter how much food you stockpile if you can't keep it fresh. Every serious prepper knows that proper storage is the difference between a secure pantry and a pile of spoiled food. And that's where Mylar bags, oxygen absorbers, and 5-gallon buckets come in. Think of Mylar as armor for your food. When sealed tight with an oxygen absorber inside, it locks out air, moisture, and pests, the 3 biggest enemies of long-term storage. The USDA notes that keeping oxygen levels below 2% can extend the shelf life of dry foods like rice, beans, and flour by up to 30 years. That's not just theory, it's science-backed food security. In 2024, when shipping costs surged nearly 25% due to rising fuel prices and port congestion, even basic storage supplies started vanishing from online retailers. Preppers who stocked up early were fine. Everyone else paid triple, or simply couldn't find any. It's a simple reminder. Small items like these are the backbone of every survival plan. I once talked with a family in Michigan who learned this lesson the hard way. They had stored hundreds of pounds of rice in regular plastic bags, and within months, it was infested with weevils. All that effort, gone, just because they skipped proper sealing. Since then, they've switched to Mylar and buckets, and now their food storage is bulletproof. Don't wait until inflation or shortages hit again. These supplies are cheap right now, but that won't last. One small investment today could protect thousands of dollars worth of food, and more importantly, your peace of mind. Because when the system breaks down, preservation becomes survival. 14. Seeds and gardening supplies. And finally, the one thing most preppers don't think of, but it might just save your sanity: seeds. When grocery prices skyrocket and shelves run bare, a garden becomes more than a hobby. It's survival. According to the USDA, food prices in 2024 rose an average of 4.8%, and supply disruptions hit produce hardest. FEMA has even emphasized the importance of self-sufficiency through local food production in recent emergency preparedness updates. Translation? Growing your own food isn't old-fashioned. It's smart insurance. Heirloom seeds, in particular, are a game changer. Unlike hybrid varieties, they reproduce true to form, meaning you can save and replant them season after season. A single packet of tomato, bean, or lettuce seeds can produce pounds of fresh food, enough to feed a family for weeks. Imagine stepping outside to pick dinner instead of worrying about the next shipment arriving at the store. During the pandemic, and again in 2024's fertilizer and drought crises, seed sales across the U.S. spiked by over 40%, according to Statista. That surge showed one thing clearly. People are waking up to the value of growing their own food. And with the cost of vegetables expected to rise another 3 to 5% in 2025, every tomato plant and pepper sprout will count. So don't overlook this one. Seeds and gardening supplies aren't just about survival. They're about freedom, sustainability, and peace of mind when the world outside feels uncertain. 15. Batteries, candles, and matches, the light that keeps you going. When the lights go out, everything changes. You realize just how much of modern life depends on electricity, from cooking and heating to simply finding your way around your own home. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, the average American household experiences 8 major power outages per year, and those numbers have been climbing as storms, wildfires, and aging infrastructure take their toll. In 2024, when Texas faced rolling blackouts during the deep freeze, thousands were left in the dark for days. Grocery stores shut down, cell towers failed, and emergency services struggled to respond. But the families who had bulk stored candles, batteries, and matches, they weren't just surviving, They were steady, calm, and in control. Light isn't just a convenience in those moments, it's psychological survival. FEMA even lists flashlights and extra batteries as top 5 emergency essentials in every disaster kit. A simple LED lantern can turn panic into peace. Candles provide warmth and light when generators fail. Matches or lighters mean you can cook, boil water, and stay warm, even when the grid is silent. And here's a reality check. When supply chains stall, these small, cheap items vanish instantly. During 2023's hurricane season, some regions reported flashlight shortages within 24 hours of storm warnings. It's the quiet preppers, the ones with shelves stocked full of D batteries, waterproof matches, and long-burning candles, who don't panic when darkness falls. Because in a crisis, light is more than survival. It's comfort. It's control. It's the one thing that keeps fear at bay. And when the power grid goes silent again, and it will, those who prepared will be the ones lighting the way. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to Frugal Prepping for more smart prepping tips. Don't wait until the shelves are empty. Start preparing today. And drop a comment below with what you're stocking up on first.